call is from a federal prison. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from
Bowser.
This call will be recorded if subject monitoring at any time. Accept call, press 5 to this call. Future call, press 18 now.
What's up? How you doing?
It's
Yo, I know it's cold by you, man. It's warming up a little over here, man. But
not
no,
too bad, actually. I mean, here it's, I don't know if you've ever been on the west coast in this area, but it rains most of the time. And it gets snow in the mountains, but you still feel it early in the morning.
nah. See, and I have been on the West Coast sometime, man. Beautiful. I say haven't been often, man. I've been over here in Illinois, man. You know how it is in Illinois,
Yeah.
man. Cold, 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 man. But yo,
Yeah.
Gary, I got some questions. Yo, first I want to start by the receptions was very well, man. A lot of people love hearing your voice. It seems like a lot of people want to know more. And, I figure why not start now, man, with getting things going for you, man, so we can make sure, things are better for you, even when you get out. You know what I mean? That would be a nice thing. So, one of the things I'm going to ask Gary, because a lot of people want to seem to know, man, born and raised, can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
My upbringing?
Yeah, a
Well,
little
let's
bit.
see.
Whatever you want. Just where you were born, raised at most of the time.
Yeah. I started my life in Montreal. That's where I was born. But I only lived there for a year. Then my dad got a job for Reynolds Aluminum in a little small town called Baie-Comeau, Quebec. That happens to be the same town that Prime Minister Brian Mulroney is from. So when I was in kindergarten, he was in high school. That's a little bit of celebrity fact there, but we never ran into each other. And I spent my first 7 years trying to figure out French because it's the only thing they spoke in that town. But both my parents were English, and the only thing they taught in school was French. So
Mm.
my first 7 years was pretty hard because the only time I ever heard English was at home. So
Dang.
after that, I went from Quebec out to the west coast. My dad got a job out in Calgary. So in Calgary is where basically I started my life. About 7 years old, I started getting into model trains originally, and with little HO model trains during the 70s, you needed little circuits to run them, little switches and stuff. So my older brother taught me about soldering and electricity, and that's where I started learning about electronics. It was pretty basic back then, little simple transistors, resistors, and capacitors. There, I got my train set really, really good. By the time I was 10, my train set was pretty good. Actually, it was featured one National Model Railroad Association newsletter.
Mm.
After that, my dad got various contract work throughout Canada and America. So I started traveling in a motorhome both across America and across Canada in many civilizations with my mom and my dad.
Okay.
I got to experience all of America and all of Canada,
Good.
various different cities, which was good as I started going through high school. Whenever we had to learn about something, that place, my dad would just basically drive to that town. So if I learning about the Civil War, we went to that area. If we were learning about something else, we just get. So it was interesting. I got to see the history up front. Even like when I started learning about the atomic bomb in World War II, we just went to New
Mm.
Mexico, Los Angeles, and the scientists there showed me how the atomic bomb worked and all this, how they designed it and all this stuff. So I got a really good experience in the first few years growing up as a teenager. Then
Nice.
my mom died when I was 15, so when that happened, we moved back to Toronto, and anyways, where
Wow.
I started my business, computer business. By then, I was already knowing how to program computers and all that. That's where I started programming Texas with computers.
Okay. Now, Gary, if you don't mind me asking, at 15, man, losing your mom, that's
Yeah,
crazy, man. Like,
well, my first real hardship was my older brother. When I was living in Calgary, he got shot down in an airplane. He was in the Air Force. Got shot down by the Soviet Union.
And it seems like your family is, very involved, in the military. Seems like, served. You mentioned the atomic bomb.
My dad was basically a defense contractor.
Okay.
And for all the major companies, all the big, he especially was a mechanical engineer. All the engine companies, all the plane companies, all the human plants. He worked almost for every major corporation. So always had a background on how to do engineering.
Dang, that's deep, man.
Build the computers from there.
That makes sense on why you're so smart on the computers. And you mentioned like basic capacitors, transistors back then, but your love for video games, man, like you wind up started like from what I've heard, and I know we spoke before about retro games and things like that. Where did the love for gaming start?
My love for gaming always been started early because I originally got into computers because they were for music. Because when I was growing up, I was studying music.
Okay.
This call is from a federal prison.
Discovered computers could play music, but from then, I always wanted to get the computers to better graphics. One of the biggest things they did was upgrade their processor so they could have more graphics.
Mm-hmm.
That was very popular. Back when I started, computers only had 256 buttons.
Yeah, that's you predating me a long way, man. I was born in '83, man. So you got me beat by a long shot on that.
So from there, I just kept, my expansion just kept expanding into more and more. I'd like to see what the latest technology could do and what it is capable of doing.
Okay. And Gary, I know one thing that we'll dive into more, and I've always wanted to ask you about certain things you're comfortable with talking about, but this is just something I'm going to ask. This is not anything relevant to, what's going on with you and your case and everything, which I'm very, want to be very light on. But out of this whole thing, Gary, do you kind of feel like you've been taken advantage of or used in a way?
Well, no, only part of I was the public face, so I was the most vulnerable to not really taken advantage of, but judgment-wise, I'm basically a message to anyone.
Okay. And it's surprising that someone like you can easily see that. A lot of people are not self-aware enough to kind of see that, and I'm glad that because honestly, that's probably how most people do see it, and now that you're now getting to the point where soon, we all are sitting here, man, waiting on your release and want the best. So, that's why I said a lot of this we'll be talking more in depth. But the reason I asked for that, because it's something I always thought about, man. I look at it and I kind of feel if I was in your shoes, I would feel like that. So that's the only reason I asked.
Yeah, I don't have any hard feelings against anything. I'm just saying life is. In some ways, I look at it as a blessing when I look back at it, because I was in a real downward spiral in my life at the time. I was gaining weight, I was drinking too much, I was eating too much. My eldest son had died in 2019, so in a way this helped reset my life back on the right path.
You know what? And condolences on your son, man, and everyone you lost in your family. You've been through a lot of hardships, but I will say you're right. I love the way you're looking at it, because it did pull you away from all those things that probably were, possible bad things in your life. And that's the same way I looked at it when it happened with me, man. It was a lot of things that I was doing that I had to reflect on and say, you know what? I felt like karma caught up with me, man. So, but
This call is about to end. We're 10 minutes over, so again tomorrow around the same time.
Same time. Let's do it again tomorrow, man. I got you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Later, man.